Okay, it is 6 o'clock and let us start with today's Q&A session. First of all, thank you all so much for joining us for this very special fund launch event with AKRSP-I, which is Aga Khan Rural Support Program India. Today, we will be speaking to Mr. Naveen, who is the CEO of AKRSP-I. And let me introduce AKRSP-I and the fund in brief before we begin the Q&A session. So AKRSP-I has been empowering rural communities in Gujarat for over 30 years through various initiatives. One of the significant programs is the Entrepreneurship Development Program, which provides rural youth with training, mentorship, and financial support to start and sustain their businesses. By promoting entrepreneurship, AKRSP-I helps create sustainable livelihoods and strengthens the local economy, fostering a sense of pride and self-sufficiency among rural communities. The initiative develops business icons among marginalized communities and aspiring local youth to become successful entrepreneurs. They are a non-denominational, non-government development organizations, and AKRSP-I works as a catalyst for the betterment of rural communities by providing them direct support. They are active in over 2,700 villages of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and Bihar, and their work has impacted the lives of over 3 million people from marginalized sections of society. Over 80% of the households impacted by their work belong to marginalized communities like tribals, Dalits, and minorities. Over 60% of the beneficiaries are women who form a core group for program interventions. We are so excited to present the AKRSP-I Rural Entrepreneurship Fund in partnership with AKRSP-I. And I welcome the CEO of AKRSP-I, Mr. Naveen, to this Q&A. Welcome to this session, Naveen. Great to have you.
Thanks, Subda. Thanks to Rangde for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. And I think, first of all, we'd love to know more about AKRSP-I. How would you describe the work? A little context setting for everybody who's joining us today.
Sure, thanks. So, Aga Khan Rural Support Program, or the more popular name AKRSP, was established in 1983 in Gujarat. And for first few years, we were focused on natural resources management. So soil, water, forestry, those kind of works. Over the period of time, we found that rural livelihoods should include much more than just natural resources. So then we expanded to, let us say, agri and agri-allied extension services, so horticulture, vegetable cultivations, livestock, those kind of works. Maybe after 20 years of our work around natural resource and agriculture, we found that youth, the rural youth, very interestingly, they were not coming to our meetings. So, and we were very concerned that while large number of people were participating in our programs, but we found that those who are in the age group of, let us say, 15 to 35, they were slightly, they were not very excited about all these programs which we were doing. And when we, when we discussed with them that what is concerning them, we found that their aspirations are slightly different. So that is where we very seriously thought of focusing on youth as a separate program. And more recently, now AKRSP is also looking at a very challenging issue, which is climate change. So we started with natural resources, moved on to agriculture and livestock, then vocational skills and entrepreneurship for youth. And more recently, now we are focusing on climate change. We are 510 professionals. We have maybe around 1,000 paid volunteers working in villages. We reach out to 3,500 villages in 4 states. Recently, we started Maharashtra also. So while you introduced 3 states, but now we are in 4 states. And our target group is, of course, as our name suggests, it is rural areas. But within rural also, it is more focused on marginalized communities. So tribal areas, remote locations, or those who are really impoverished like Bihar. So those kind of regions and communities are our target groups. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And, starting from natural resources to agri to livelihoods, entrepreneurship, I think it's such a great range of work that AKRSP has been doing. And we'd like you to focus on one specific aspect of your work, which is livelihood and entrepreneurship. So how do you see what do you make of the importance of livelihood and entrepreneurship in the work that AKRSP is doing?
Yeah, so the core of the thematic core, at least, of our work is livelihoods. Okay, and how we look at livelihoods in rural areas is there are broadly two areas. One is farm-based livelihoods, so which includes agriculture, livestock, goat rearing, poultry, dairy, those kind of livelihoods. The second is non-farm. Okay. And non-farm basically again have, let us say, two streams. So one is those who want to just gain employment in the formal industries. So that is vocational training and placement. The second is those who could not move out of villages because of, if they want to remain in villages and they want to set up livelihood activities, then what we have is non-farm micro enterprises. And that is where I think this particular program fits in, that those who want to start some enterprise within villages, either which is, it may be based on agri and agri-allied activities, but it can also be non-farm. So this is broadly livelihoods. But the areas where we work, traditionally, they are highly, let us say, poverty ridden. So dimensional poverty is there. So if you look at health, education, income, every indicator, these communities are below par. So, and we found that livelihoods, it is very comprehensive in terms of our own understanding. So it includes, let us say, management of natural resources. It includes also the skills. It includes enterprises, and within livelihoods, then our core is also on women empowerment. So then our particular focus within livelihoods is on women, because traditionally we found that in all programs, wherever there are livelihood oriented opportunities available, women gets neglected in terms of providing benefits, or training them, or providing them assets which can earn them income. So that is where we focus that as far as possible, all our participants in the programs, they must come from women group. So that is our core. The unique thing about AKRSP is that we build livelihoods on the community institutions. So it is not just that we identify some household or person and give them livelihood assets and forget. Our idea is to first we mobilize community. We mobilize them into their own institutions. It can be a self-help group, it can be a farmers group, it can be a youth group. And around those groups, then we build the livelihoods. So, and because the mobilization is very strong on the ground, our connect with the community is very strong. And every livelihood program, one of the important aspect is community's own contribution. So we just not transfer the assets and forget, but we make sure that they are fully involved. They are the owner of their activities. And then wherever they need technical handholding or any support, knowledge support, any linkages, networking, that facilitation is provided by us. So yeah, so our core is women, remote communities, sustainable livelihoods, long-term orientation. So we make sure that whatever households or the participants we pick up, we remain with them for longer period of time, so that whatever interventions we do, it reaches the what we call is, let us say, end game or the sustainability. Yeah.
Got it. Absolutely. So just a couple of announcements before we move on to the next question. We welcome any questions that you might have for Naveen. You can put those questions in the chat box and I will take your questions. I will read them out for you and ask them to Naveen. Alternatively, you can also wait till the end of this session and we will have a dedicated slot for Q&A. So don't worry about that. The second announcement is, of course, that since we are here for the launch of this fund, it gives me great pleasure to announce in front of all of you that the fund is live on the Rang De page, and I am putting the link for the fund in chat box. So you can go ahead, check out the fund. We will be speaking more about the fund, how it will work and how it will benefit these communities that we are going to work for and we are serving. But more on that later. If you want to take a quick look, you can take a look at the fund page, which is now live on the Rang De platform. But coming back to you, Naveen, I think you made a very interesting point about women and how you have a very core, area of focus being women and women communities. So I'd just like to ask you about 2-3 elements. So A is young people, like you mentioned that young people, you are facing a problem involving them in these activities. Then 2 is, of course, women. And 3 is the tribals that you work with. So do tell us more about how you, tailored your work for these communities or how you got them involved and how was your experience getting them involved?
Yes, sure. Yeah. So first, let me tell you about why youth. Because if you look at let us say the land records in India, whatever trends happening in the agriculture sector, now officially we have only 1 hectare land left for one farming family. Okay, so it is in fact 0.9 hectare per household. So I mean, whatever we know within agriculture sector, let us say irrigation or agriculture or better practices, technology, market linkage, but there is a limitation up to which you can develop agriculture within this constraint, which is land constraint, because just asset is not there. So whatever you do, a limit will come. So that is where we found that youth were really very concerning, that because land fragmentation is happening over the generations, it is further decreasing. That is where youth started finding, looking for alternative livelihoods. And that is where we found that either we should look at agri-allied activities, which can have livestock or agri-processing or those kind of activities, or we look at completely new things like non-farm, which are not linked to agriculture sector. And very interestingly, we found that you said about women, because we had the traditional women's groups in the villages, which were just focused on savings and credit and bank linkages and those kind of activities. And women were very rigorously, they were looking for alternative livelihood options beyond agriculture. Of course, agriculture is there, but agriculture cannot, let us say, deploy 100% of the labor which is available in the rural household because of the lack of land and other assets. So because of these groups are there, there was aspiration within youth and women. We thought of developing an enterprise program, which is very comprehensive, starting from just building a basic understanding about livelihoods and enterprise, to really putting out ideas, refining ideas, preparing business plans, in language which community understands. So sometimes if we look at, let us say, buzzwords in urban area like startups, so then we go into very technical things like how we build the capacities of urban youth who want to start new enterprise. But in rural areas, when you want to really develop micro enterprise ideas, then you have to talk the language of people which they understand. So then we customized whole of our micro enterprise program in a way that community can understand it easily. So our processes are more of what we call is handholding. So rather than too much of classroom trainings, what we believe is rural entrepreneurs, they require handholding. So that is where we think that good mobilization and good orientation, exposure visits to existing entrepreneurs, then taking them to sustainability, and it requires several aspects. So, and we found that women particularly, because they hardly participated in very formal entrepreneurship programs in the past. So they require very comprehensive service, right from mobilization, creating basic understanding, putting up idea into action, then linking them with various services, what we call is ecosystem services, banking or processing, marketing, then linking with formal credit sources, then taking it to, let us say, sustainability or this thing, and in between you require a lot of monitoring and handholding and all these things. So yeah, so youth, women, and the last section is tribals. Yeah, so when we were thinking about entrepreneurship program almost 5-6 years back, we found that if you look at India as a country, you can find business icons in every other community. So if I tell anyone that you list down billionaires or millionaires, you can find billionaires, millionaires in every other community except tribals. Except you may find some people who are highly networked. They might have, let us say, petrol pumps or gas agencies or those kind of things. But in terms of having icons or where people can look at them and aspire to become like them, is very limited within tribal communities, because traditionally they were very remote. They were not linked with the mainstream. There were not many livelihood opportunities. There was no mobility. So that is where we thought that if we can work with the tribal youth, create some kind of trigger within them for entrepreneurship. We also tried and list down existing icons from tribal communities. We took some of the youth to them. While these enterprises were not very big, but still we could find that it could trigger aspirations within tribal youth for having their own enterprises. And initially we thought that people will come out with very traditional kind of ideas only, that goat rearing, poultry, but then we found that there were all kinds of ideas. So there are women's group who are running a very successful unique bakery. We have art and crafts, those kind of enterprises coming from tribal youth. So many variety of ideas which came and became successful. And just to mention one unique entrepreneur, I keep meeting that person because he really inspires us. So a person who was a daily wage laborer, with our handholding support and all other ecosystem services which we could provide, now that person is employing almost 18-20 other tribal youth. So our tribal youth who established the enterprise, he is giving employment to other 18-20 youth within his own geography or community. So I think if we really provide solid handholding, such kind of work and icons can be created.
Wow, that's amazing. That's absolutely wonderful. So we'll take a question from Sita. She says, thank you, Mr. Naveen. Are the communities chosen based only on economic conditions? And can you also give examples of non-farming entrepreneurial activities?
Right. Yeah. So our criteria for participants in the program is very clear. They have to be rural. our focus is, of course, on those who are from the marginalized communities. So if they are tribes, if they are from tribal communities, if they are women, if they are landless, if those kind, or there are single women within villages. So they are our prime target. Of course, anyone can join us. So our training capacity building program is always open to everyone. But those who need, let us say, initial seed support in terms of funding, so there we prioritize people who are really marginalized in terms of they are not able to afford resources from outside, or they cannot put resources from their own pockets. So that is where we focus on landless, tribals, women. If there are single women in the villages, they are the prime target group. In terms of what was the second, the examples of non-farm, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you look at, let us say, villages today, there are a lot of demand for services. So we found that the road condition in villages is slightly better now. There is electricity almost 24 hours. We see internet connections even the remotest of the areas. Even I am joining today from a village. So it tells that there are a lot of opportunities available, which can build on this improved infrastructure. So, for example, let us say when I joined AKRSP, if some tribal women would come to us and say that we want to establish a beauty parlor in a village, so my staff will not look at that option as a really very serious option which we should support. But today we see that this kind of services, like let us say beauty parlors or internet-based services, people want to access a lot of schemes, entitlements, which are all online now. A lot of government services are online. So those services can be accessed. So we have common service centers which are run by youth in the villages. This is non-farm. Let us say there are DTH services now required in villages. So we have some service providers who are just focusing on DTH services. We have young people who have set up bank kiosks. So in a way, they are like agent for mainstream banks, and they are giving a deposit and credit services on behalf of banks. So those kind of examples are there. As I said, bakeries there. We have bamboo art and craft kind of work, which is available in villages. So yeah, so there are a lot of options, even masonry. So we see a lot of push on the infrastructure. So we have a huge program around, let us say, housing or sanitation or drinking water in villages. So now if such a massive infrastructure work is being done by government, they require services. So they require trained masons, they require suppliers for material. So all these are opportunities for rural communities, and we are like basically using all these opportunities to provide various options to youth.
Fantastic. So there's a question from Prasoon. Within this fund, can I choose to specify the youth from a specific state to receive these funds? So I will answer that on your behalf, Naveen. So this fund is for rural entrepreneurs in Gujarat, Prasoon. So we are not covering state specific except for Gujarat. And I hope that answers your question. And then we have an interesting question from Arun. How do you address the fear of failure?
Right. Yeah. So one thing is there that because we have chosen our target group, which is really difficult. So first, we are working in rural areas. Second, it has to be remote. Third, within remoteness and rural, we are focusing on, let us say, the kind of communities I was narrating: tribals, Dalits, minorities, or women, single women. So if those kind of group are there, there is risk. Of course, there is risk. But what we do is, as I said, wherever we go with very long-term horizon. So if you look at AKRSP geographies, we do not leave any geography before, let us say, 15-20 years. So if we choose a district or a block for us, we remain there for a longer period of time just to ensure that there is proper community mobilization happens there. We work as per the pace of the community. So sometimes some communities have their own pace of learning and engaging with us. So that space we provide. Okay. And if you have longer period of time or engagement period with the communities, the risk gets minimized, because then you understand community very well. They understand you very well. If they are facing some challenges, we are there to sort out their issues. If we have seen many cases where the first enterprise has failed, but that does not mean that we leave the youth. We again engage with those communities, those youth, and find out some alternative ways. So if person is not able to, let us say, succeed in the poultry business, he or she may look at some non-farm option, or some other option. But we make sure that if youth gets engaged with us with the aspiration that they want to improve their income levels, their livelihoods, then I mean, they should not fear that if what will happen if one enterprise do not work. So we are always there for handholding, providing options. If one source do not work, we can link with them various government schemes. Or if nothing works, then agriculture is of course there. We can work on the farm or livestock. In our experience, like last 5-6 years, whatever we have supported, we found that almost 85% continues their work, so even after 3 years. So whatever livelihood assets we provide and trainings and all other handholding services, it leads to almost 85% of the survival rate. Considering the parallel programs in the country, it is really good. I mean, you can consider it as one of the best survival rates in terms of micro enterprises.
Indeed, indeed. That is a wonderful, wonderful percentage that you mentioned. And I think just building up on a question that we have received. So I think we all would like to know, how are the capital and credit needs for these enterprises met currently? And, how do you see the Rangde and AKRSP Rural Entrepreneurship Fund play a role? And how can Rangde Social Investors play a role?
Right. So there are two categories of entrepreneurs. One who are already doing some work with our support in the past. Okay. So we already have almost maybe 1,200 youth who got engaged with us in various enterprise kind of programs. Then there are every year new entrepreneurs come up. So now this year we have, let us say, taken up another 700 youth on board. Okay. And we are trying to provide them all the services which are available. One of the constant which we found in current model, which we are doing, and that is where we thought of partnering with Rangde, is that because we are a non-profit organization, whatever we are doing, we can provide some initial seed support in terms of fund. Right? So it cannot be more than 15,000-20,000 rupees. Okay. But because we have such a large pool of entrepreneurs available to us, and many of them really want to grow. Okay. Now their need is not 10,000 or 5,000 or 15,000 from us. And it do not make any sense for us to further give them 15,000 of grant subsidy. That is where we thought that if they have a track record of 2-3 years, then can we provide them some soft loans which help them to grow. And that requirement, we have seen that it ranges from 30,000 to 50,000. Even some people are asking for 1 lakh rupees. Okay. But that really help them to scale up on their own. And that will also create a kind of enterprising discipline in them. They should not remain dependent on the AKRSP for grant subsidies. For growth, they should definitely look at soft loans and other options. And that is where I think Rangde will make a real difference. once this, so initial support will go to some of the existing entrepreneurs who want to grow. Okay. But over the period of time, once these partnerships gets more, let us say we have more experience of doing these things, then we may also look at fresh entrepreneurs who require the initial capital. And sometimes in the past, in fact, we have seen that if the initial requirement for a person is, let us say, 50,000 rupees, but because as a, let us say, charitable organization, our limitation is that we do not want to give much of grant subsidy to a particular household. So many times we have to say no, because we can give, let us say, 15-20,000, but their requirement is, let us say, 80,000 rupees, and they cannot put 60,000 from their own pocket, nor they are linked to bank. So in such options, then we have to turn away people that either we look for, let us say, some government schemes or bank credit, but that takes time. But I think in such cases also, Rangde will make a sense, and it will really help rural people in terms of initiating their businesses. But the initial focus, as I said, is on the existing entrepreneurs who have 2-3 years of track record, and they want to grow beyond the AKRSP is the let us say subsidized grant.
Understood. So for everybody who's joining in, the AKRSP Rural Entrepreneurship Fund is an excellent opportunity for all of us to invest in rural entrepreneurs from Gujarat and really help them to scale their setup, their business, their enterprise to the next level. They already have a proven track record working with AKRSP. So this is a great chance for you to invest in these rural entrepreneurs and get repaid with interest. So these are all entrepreneurs who absolutely are raring to go. And I think access to credit is one of the only things that is holding them back, because AKRSP can only help them to a certain limit. And now, powered by the Rangde pool of social investors, we're really looking forward to a lot of investment in these rural entrepreneurs. So the fund is live. You can go ahead, check it out, make your investment in the Rural Entrepreneurship Fund. As we continue to take your questions, so I think there was a question from Naveen. She or he, I'm sorry if I'm getting your gender wrong. They wanted to know how many loans have you done so far? Like, how many loans do you think AKRSP has done so far? And what was the most funded entrepreneurial activity?
Also not aware.
Naveen, if you could shed some light on how many.
So so whatever entrepreneurs we have supported till now, most of them have been
please go ahead.
Most of them have been supported through grant funding from let us say the projects which are run by us from CSR or some foundations, and people also use their own contributions to match up our support. Very limited number of them could actually access the bank credit. So if I look at our own data of maybe 1,000 odd entrepreneurs for which we have the data, not more than 15-16 people have real bank credit available to them. And there are many reasons for them. Many of them are tribals. They do not have any asset for mortgaging to the
biggest
bank.
issue.
And some of them have also got government subsidies. So, let us say in tribal communities, there are various government schemes available.
Sorry, I'll just
discharge summary.
I will just remove this. I'm sorry about that. Yes, sorry. If you could repeat that for us, please.
So I was saying that maybe 15-16 people got bank credit, but some of them, maybe some limited numbers, 20-25, they also received government support. So there are various schemes available in tribal department and some other departments to support entrepreneurs. The most let us say funded one is poultry is very successful and funded activity. And we found that because it was fully integrated with the market, so there is the backend support available from raw material suppliers. Then there is no forward linkages with the market, and the whole integration is there. So because platform is available, so if one person takes up the activity, the others easily, those who are neighbors or in the nearby villages, they quickly adopted the same activities. And this is really commercial poultry, so it is not very small. So let us say traditional livelihood activities, if you go to villages, it is no 50 chicks or 100 chicken in a shelter. These are really big ones. So let us say 1,000 chicks in a shelter, or 2,000, or even 8,000. So that is the kind of value chain which we could create in the poultry sector, because it is fully integrated with the backend and forward end market.
Right. Thank you for that, Mr. Naveen. There's a question from Mahendra Singh. Is there any social audit of your activities?
Yeah, so social audit means AKRSP always believes in participatory monitoring systems. Okay. So whatever activities we do, it is built on community institutions. So as I said, we work in villages where we have very strong community mobilization happened, and we have some strong community groups available. And whatever we do, we try and have a participatory monitoring. So while our people also monitor, but community have equal right to provide feedback. So every quarter, actually, we visit our participants or programs, and we jointly assess the outcome of the activities. So whether the activity is doing fine, if they are satisfied with the output and outcome of the activity, if they are facing any issues, then we jointly try and find out the solutions. But yeah, the co-ownership and participatory monitoring is the way of working in AKRSP.
Wonderful. So there are some questions about how this fund will work. I will quickly explain to all the viewers who are joining in. So when you invest in this fund, that amount will be dispersed to one of the profiles that is eligible under this fund, one of the profiles of rural entrepreneurs, with a special focus on marginalized communities. Your amount will be dispersed to these entrepreneurs, and they will repay you as per a monthly repayment schedule. So all the money that you invest will be disbursed to a rural entrepreneur, and they will repay it to you as a social investor. So this is how it is going to work. And I think, Naveen, it would be great to just outline what kind of activities this fund is going to cover. So if you could just shed some light on that.
Yeah, so this particular fund will focus the micro entrepreneurs. As I said, the particular geographies and communities, and the kind of activities which will get included are, let us say, agri-processing, livestock, non-farm, like let us say, people have service centers, so common service centers, we have bank kiosk, we have bamboo processing centers. So those kind of non-farm enterprise, people have also come up with very general, let us say, common shops in villages. So we have kirana stores, we have general stores, electronic shops, mobile shops. So whole lot of range is there. So in a broad sense, there are two kind of enterprises. One is agri-linked, which may include agri-processing and livestock. Second is total non-farm kind of activities, which includes all these pet enterprises, shops, service providers, those kind of range.
Great. Thank you so much, Naveen. I think Ram has a question. Ram, please go ahead.
I don't have a question. Hi, Naveen. I just had a comment to make, in terms of the loan repayment. I think one of the things which Rangdev brings to the table is that the ability for the entrepreneur to choose how much, when, for how long, and on what terms they want to repay. Now, when you combine this flexibility with affordability, then it becomes a force multiplier for the entrepreneur to succeed in their venture. So I just wanted to call that out. So for all the social investors who are investing, they're actually increasing the probability of success, which is already very high, thanks to AKRSP. But by ensuring that credit does not become a burden for their business, for their cash flows. So when we are designing these products, we would design it in a way that it beautifully aligns with the cash flows of the business, given the diversity of the businesses, which Naveen just shared a short while back.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that, Ram. And yes, for everybody listening, that's a great input. And I think we'll take the next question. This question is from Puneet Pandey. He wants to ask about AKRSP's previous experience of access to credit for rural entrepreneurs and specifically on their ability to repay.
Yeah, so as I narrated earlier, very limited numbers of entrepreneurs could get the formal credit from the banks. But many of them actually, they also access, let us say in Bihar, which is not the focus of this fund, but there are a lot of MFIs are there. But we find that the kind of interest rates which they charge is 24% to almost 36%. Okay. And any rural entrepreneurs to succeed in those kind of credit terms, particularly when the risk is already very high, because they are rural, they are remote, limited skill set. So when the risk is high, the credit rate is interest rate is very high, then the chances of failure is too high. And we found that many people actually get trapped into they have to shut down their enterprise, they have to sell assets and repay to such MFIs who charge very high interest rates. And this is now actually coming to tribal areas also. So it's not that it is limited to only peri-urban or highly dense states like UP and Bihar, but it is now coming to tribal areas where a lot of credit agencies are coming in the villages. They are offering credit products, but the terms are really exploitative, I would say, from those communities' point of view, because in urban areas, if you see, what happens is people are mostly wage laborers. So every day they earn some cash. So they can repay loans which are at the 24%, 30% using their cash flows. In rural areas, because people are dependent on agriculture, so they get income either once in a year or twice in a year. So it is very difficult for them to repay in such conditions. So the past experience is very limited. People could get the credit from the banks or the government schemes, but the demand is there. If let us say if we look at Rangde and if we can channelize loans at 6%, 8%, then I see that will be huge transformative change. And when I think when we asked our entrepreneurs at what rate they are comfortable, so I think 6%, 8%, 10%, it looks very attractive to these entrepreneurs, and they find themselves very comfortable position to repay such loans. We have track record of making women credit accessible through SHGs. And if you look at the quality of self-help groups which AKRSP has formed and their repayment history, it is really good. So I would say that while most of those loans goes into consumption requirement of households, but the repayment of the communities or the households with whom we work, it is good, and maybe except in very exceptional circumstances, we found that most of the community participants in our programs, their repayment has been very good to banks, and this is mostly through self-help groups, so
Correct.
not to individual entrepreneurs.
Got it. Ram, I think you want to, yes.
I just wanted to, thank you, Naveen, for touching upon the MFIs and how they're really not the right institution, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. I just wanted to, highlight the difference here, because many of our social investors may not know the difference between a microfinance institution and what we are trying to do at Rangde. So microfinance institutions, typically, they don't give individual loans. So they give loans in a group, and they do not give them any choice whatsoever, right? So the community members who are part of that group, they don't get to choose how much they want to borrow, when, for how long, and the terms, nothing. In fact, they don't even, get to choose the interest rate, because it's just decided by the microfinance institution. And the irony is, despite the fact that the member in the group has been repaying the loans religiously for many years, they still continue to get charged very high interest rates. So Naveen, I just wanted to call that out. And also last year, and just to complete this thought, last year in April 2022, Reserve Bank of India removed the interest rate cap which they had put for microfinance institutions. Now, each microfinance institution's board can decide what the interest rate should be, as long as it is not usurious. But RBI doesn't define what usurious means, right? So yeah, so this is just an open invitation for the microfinance institutions to charge even more. So just wanted to share that, and therefore, what we are trying to do, all of us together as social investors, is going to make a big difference, as Naveen said, to the communities out there. And as he said, this is shocking, right? Even in tribal geographies, if people, microfinance institutions are trying to make a headway, I think that's really, really worrying.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that, Ram. I think we'll take a question from Puneet. Puneet, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, so there's no question. I think I just wanted to thank Naveen ji, Ram, and the entire Rangde team. I think what the two organizations are offering here is something which is unique. And with my experience of livelihood, rural livelihood, and I have, Naveen ji, a lot of regard for all the good work that AKRSPL is doing, and your connect with rural entrepreneurs. Combining that with access to credit at flexible terms, which can be customized, as Ram explained, to the needs of a rural entrepreneur, I think makes it as a model which can be a showcase for entire India. I think people are thinking as to how to crack this sweet spot. There's a lot of good work that is being done in livelihoods and rural livelihood, but access to credit and affordable credit was a missing link. And I think congratulations to both these organizations and to the leadership for coming with this unique product. I'll just implore all the social investors who are connected here, think you can be part of a new model and a new chapter for the entire rural livelihood sector in India by being a part of this one. That's all I wanted to say.
Great. Thank you so much, Puneet. And if you are with us, you can send in your question via the chat box, or you can just press the raise hand button on your profile and we'll come to you and get you to ask your question. We're down to the last couple of questions from our side for Naveen. And again, a reminder that the fund page is live. You can go ahead and check that out. Naveen, any interesting trends you would like to share with us as far as livelihoods go?
Yeah, so if you look at rural livelihoods, one thing I already touched upon is as of now, we are very concerned about climate change. And it is really impacting rural livelihoods. So it is not just a matter of now headlines in the newspapers or in the scientific communities. We find that there are cyclones in our coastal geographies, there are frequent droughts, then there are long dry spells, and these all kind of activities really hamper the livelihood space of rural communities. And that is where we really need adaptation activities, which can really sustain community livelihoods. And this kind of activities, the kind of demand for services or the masons or internet-based services or anything, processing or livestock, these are all perfectly aligned adaptation mechanisms against the big challenge which we are going to face in coming years. The second aspect is the changing aspirations of rural youth. So now we are at a stage where we cannot neglect what rural youth is aspiring for. So if they want to come out with ideas which are new for those particular areas, then it is, I think, for organizations or individuals like us to provide the services which are required for making those ideas successful. So I was in one district in last year in Gujarat, and one of very young girl, actually, she wanted to become participant of our program, the Skills Enterprise program. I asked her how much land your father owns or your family owns. She said almost 20 acres. Then I said, if 20 acres is there, why do you want to become part of this micro enterprise program, which may earn you maybe 10,000 rupees per month or 12,000 rupees? But her aspiration was that she want to earn on her own. Okay. So whatever amount is there, she wanted independence. Okay. She said, either I will put up my own small enterprise, or I will go for some employment in the urban center. Okay. So I think those aspirations are there. Another interesting aspect, actually, which we never recognize and we never monitor, is, let us say, when a tribal girl start earning on her own, then there are other side outcomes, positive outcomes which comes up. When she start contributing to family income, then she have more, let us say, control over her own life. So we have seen many girls narrating that their marriages could be deferred just because they are earning. Otherwise, she could have been married much earlier. So such stories are also coming up just because of this kind of interventions. So while loans are there, income is there, we keep monitoring all these aspects, but there are a lot of social aspects which are associated with such kind of programming.
Wow, I think the instances you mentioned are so heartwarming. And I think all of us on this call, these aspirations are so dear to us. And all we want to do is nurture these aspirations, help out in any way we can, invest in their dreams, and just see them prosper, see them get agency, see them get dignity, self-respect, and financial independence at the end of the road. So thank you so much, Naveen, for sharing such wonderful insights from the ground and from the rich body of work that AKRSP has been doing so far. And a big thank you to all of you who joined us for today's fund launch for the AKRSP Rural Entrepreneurship Fund. We are so happy that the fund has already started seeing some investments. You can check out the page right away and make your own social investment in the fund at the earliest. And we really encourage you to do that. But before we take your leave, a big thank you to all of you for sparing your time today for joining us for this fund launch event. We're so heartened by this wonderful, show of strength and support that we've got from all the communities that we're in touch with. So a big thank you to the AKRSP team. A big thank you to all our existing social investors who've joined us today. A big thank you to everybody who's not a social investor yet, but who's joined us today to know more about the work we are doing. Naveen, is there something else you would want to say before we formally conclude this session?
No, I think my last word is that Rangde, AKRSP and investors, we can really make this program a model program within the country. So we have good presence on ground, a track record of working with communities. There was a gap in terms of credit, and affordable credit is now available through Rangde platform and investors. I think there is really bright future for this program. And right now we are in, let us say, in pilot phase, but I think this kind of services are absolutely required in rural areas. And there is huge opportunity. I mean, whole of rural India is like waiting for such services. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much again. And you've heard it from the person on the ground who sees this day in and day out. So thank you once again for joining us. You can catch the recorded version of this Q&A on our YouTube channel shortly. AKRSPI and Rangde, we are both very active on social media. So you can spot us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. So do not hesitate in getting in touch with us. And we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Just reach out to us via social media or our websites. And a big thank you again to everybody who joined us. Good evening and have a wonderful weekend ahead. Thank you so much.